L'immense photographe Roger Ballen nous a accordé une interview juste avant de prendre son train pour Arles, où il a un magnifique projet pour l'été, c'est-à-dire la maison Roger Ballen.
Let's begin with the beginning. What opened your eyes to the art and the idea to become a photographer?
My mother worked in Magnum in the 1960s and got to know people like Cartier-Bresson, who came to our house a number of times. And there were other people, in terms of French people, like Marc Ribot would be another person. And they got friendly with my mother as well as other photographers. And used to come to the house and leave books, give her pictures. So this was when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. And that's how I got introduced to photography. So I remember very clearly for my high school, when I was 18 years old, I graduated and my mother bought me a Nikon camera. And I remember that, got this camera, I just can't wait to take pictures. So I ran out the first day I got the pictures, and all of a sudden it was the right thing for me to do. I had like a passion from the very beginning. And so when I was 18 years old, I was taking pictures, and some of the pictures are really quite excellent. In September this year, Thames and Hudson, the publisher, is doing a big retrospective book on me called Ballen. And in the book, there are pictures that I took when I was like 18 years old, and I'm proud of them today. They're still excellent photographs. So I had the eye and I had the passion in my teenage time.
You have been studying philosophy, psychology?
Psychology. And my first degree is in psychology.
Okay.
And then I have a degree in PhD in geology.
Okay. What was the idea? It was a way to better understand humankind? What was the idea?
Well, I think the first step to psychology, I took this during the counterculture period in the late 60s, early 70s in Berkeley, because I graduated from Berkeley in California, so it was a period of upheaval among the youth. And so we were all trying to find out, we were sort of interested in becoming better human beings, getting to know ourselves, getting to know other people well on a so-called deeper level. And so this was pervasive in the culture at the time. And I think I was having a bit of an identity crisis myself, as there was a cultural crisis as well. So they sort of fitted together at the time, and I think that's why I was interested in studying psychology. But you know, the thing is, I never wanted to practice psychology. So I found myself after studying it, I didn't want to practice it. And so then my mother died in the early 70s, and I did a 5-year trip from Cairo to Cape Town by land, and from Istanbul to New Guinea by land, and I did my first photo book called Boyhood. And then I came back to America in 1977, and immediately, or 1 year later, began a schooling again at university in Colorado and did a PhD in geology, and I graduated in 1981. I wasn't that fond of the United States at the time, and I had just married a South African woman. And South Africa was like the Saudi Arabia of minerals. It's super rich. And I thought it would be a good place to work, and I had a favorable impression of the country, even though they had an apartheid system when I was first there in 1974. So I thought it was a good opportunity for me, because my wife was there, and I liked the country, and I didn't want to work in America, so I went back there in 1982, and I've been in Johannesburg since 1982. And I practiced geology, I guess, for 25 years, as well as doing photography, and I like the geology. First of all, it's about the earth. And secondly, you spend your time outside, not inside, and you're free. I was sort of free to do what I wanted to do. I started my own business in geological exploration, which is to look for minerals like gold, diamonds, etc., all over Africa. And so while I was doing my job, I was also doing my photography, and I enjoyed both, actually.
Because you make installations, you conceive things in space. When did you decide to photograph like that, to control the scene?
Up to the mid-90s, although my goals were somewhat artistic, the work could be seen partly as documentarian. And beginning in about 96, 97, my relationship to photography and my subject started to change. I started to interact with the subjects in a more theatrical way. It became like a theater of Roger Ballen or a theater of the absurd. And this started, I remember very clearly in 1997 when I went to the in and out of the Johannesburg airport. There was a blue form you had to fill out. And I remember for many years I put businessman because in Africa you can't tell them you're a photographer, you would be arrested, they wouldn't allow you into the country. So then I always put businessman. Then I decided, well, if I'm going to South Africa, it's okay to say businessman, photographer. And then I said photography. I remember very clearly in 1997 on the form I put photographer artist. And I guess that's what I am. You know, most of what I do is photography, but the other things that I do like video, sculpture, installation, the aesthetic that I portray or express in these other forms comes from my photography in a way. The core is photography. If you say the sun is like the photography and the planets around it are installation, video, sculpture, but the core and the main aesthetic has been black and white photography. So I guess I would call myself photographer artist. What else can you do? There's not many other words. An artist doesn't mean anything these days. If you call yourself an artist, well, Picasso's an artist, and somebody here in France making a picture of the people walking along the Seine say they're an artist. So what's an artist? It's like saying I'm a sprinter because I can run, but it doesn't mean I'm a sprinter like Usain Bolt.
So, yes. When you create, what do you prefer? To conceive the installation, for example, or just take a picture, final act?
No, everything's important because if you don't get one thing right, nothing's right. So when I make the pictures, you could say that I partly create a world. But if the world has faults in it, I never would take a picture. So it's a step by step by step picture, layer by layer by layer. It's like a painting. It's like thousands of brushstrokes. A photograph is built up over thousands and thousands of decisions. Some are very fast. They're subconscious decisions. But they all have to be working in an organic way. And if they don't work in an organic way, then I would never take a picture. And if I was going to make an installation somewhere, like in a museum, if it doesn't work well, I understand why it doesn't work well. I've been doing this for decades and decades and decades. So I want my pictures to have instantaneous impression on people. I'm not a conceptual artist. I'm a psychological artist. So my pictures should be in your stomach, in your back of your mind faster than you can blink. See how fast I'm blinking? Faster than that. It's in your head. That's what I want my pictures to do. And you walk away with them. And they attack your subconscious, they remain in your subconscious, transform your subconscious. So I'm not a political artist, I'm not a cultural artist, I'm not a social artist, I'm a psychological one.
What is the idea? What do you want to project to people through your work?
Look, the issue of what I want to project through the work is very abstract. I can't necessarily understand what goes on in people's mind. They may say, oh, these pictures are funny. A lot of people say they're dark and disturbing. Usually if they say they're dark and disturbing, it means the pictures have had a very strong effect on them, which is great, which is what you want. I don't want to disturb people, but I want the pictures to have an impact on their psychological being in some real way, that they actually begin to reflect on their own identity in some way that they almost can't speak about. You know, good pictures are beyond words, and I don't have any goals when I take pictures. My only goal is to take a strong picture that challenges me first. If the picture doesn't challenge me or excite me, then I won't show it to anybody else. So this is my goal. It's just the goal is that the pictures remain in people's minds, and well, that should be the goal of any artist. You don't want people to walk by your work and forget about it. That's very bad. But I don't go out and try to say, I want them to feel this, I want them to feel that, I want them to feel this. No, my pictures go beyond words. If I always say to somebody, if my pictures can be defined in one word, or 2 words, or words, then it's probably a bad photograph, which is what you see in most art fairs, galleries. You immediately, when you look at the pictures, you know what they're about. Oh, this is this is that. Those pictures, when you can say that, it usually has no impact on you. You already know what the meaning is.
You are very interested in the relationship of the humans with nature and animals. Can you say more about this?
Yeah, I think throughout my career I've been very interested in photographing animals. And in a way, we say, what is the symbol of the animal? The animal is part of our subconscious mind. You know, the animal, the animal's mind is part of our own mind. So by discovering the essence of the animal, we're actually discovering the essence of our own being. And this is, people don't recognize this. I always tell people the best way to understand human nature is just understand your own dog. Just understand your own dog, and you'll understand more about human nature than you will by reading 100 books. The dog tells you so much about human nature. I'm not saying you can't learn the same thing from a snake or a lion or a tiger, but we all have, most of us have pets, and a dog is a common pet that we develop a relationship towards and get to know. So understand the dog. For example, the dog can be your best friend, but if you put a piece of meat there, they'll kill you. When human beings deal with money, they're the same. They're the same. But come on the dog's territory, they'll bite you. Go on some other dog's territory, they'll bite and bark. So this is about what nation states are about. They're always fighting each other over their own territory. So we're territorial. So you can go on and on and on and on and on, and you can discover the relationships between the animal and the human.
Birds are a symbol of what for you?
The bird is a symbol of heavenliness. They link the heavens to the earth. So they're a symbol of heaven. My next project is on rats. Rats are the symbol of the earth and symbol of the unknown, of so-called psychological darkness. So I've been working on this project for a couple of years. Most of my projects take at least 5 years, because I want to have great photographs. They're really good photographs, and you have to get to know your subject well, and it takes time to create the complexity of the images that I respect in my own work. And so I work 5 days a week almost, at least 5 afternoons a week on taking pictures, but it takes time to complete a project, and I'm in no rush.
What are your sources of inspiration?
At this point in my life, and I always tell other photographers, the biggest inspiration should be your own work. It should be your own work, that you actually, it's like a woman having a baby. From nothing you created a human being. And it's the same thing with your own work. I mean, there's nothing there. Well, there's everything there, but nothing there. So you have to find the essence out there. And if you find it and you express it well, that's very inspiring. It's better to look at your own work, because your own work is a reflection of you. There's hundreds and hundreds of painters or artists that have had some impact on me, but the main impact has been my own photographs. I can go back to cave painting and say cave painting has been more powerful to me than most contemporary art. So cave painting. Also, you can talk about African sculpture. You can talk about sculpture and art from Papua New Guinea. I mean, it doesn't have to be a Western artist. My favorite art might be Papua New Guinea art. Yeah, that's more powerful than any contemporary art, probably. That's real stuff. That's real. Not done in an artist studio. The Papua New Guinea art comes from the earth. And they've developed a very sophisticated style of expressing that. So for me, that's very interesting. And I would say that the art that I'm most interested in Western art would be art brut, like what Dubuffet discovered.
Let's talk now about your work with Hans Lehmann at the Museum of Hunting and Nature, the exhibition which is currently now in Paris.
Well, Hans Lehmann and myself got to know each other in 2012, I had a show in Sittard, and he came to the show. And then he took us around the area for the next day after the show opened, and I was very impressed with his interest in nature, his interest in archaeology, and his work seemed to be very related to animals and nature in a very profound way. And I found a real link in what he was doing between some of my goals and his goals, and well, this was great. So we talked about how we might collaborate. So this went on for a few years, and we put a proposal together, I remember, and it was his works and my work, but not combined. And then we sent this to a few museums, and they said, well, this isn't really collaboration. It's not really collaboration. And then one man from New York at the Drawing Center suggested, oh, why don't he take some of my work and put it into his pictures, and I would take some of his work and put it into my pictures. And that gave us a good idea. So I started to send him pictures, and he sent me cutouts, and we started to work. And a lot of the pictures were very successful, and opened up a whole new aesthetic for both of us. And so we were very keen to continue.
Were you excited in discovering how Hans was interpreting your work?
Yeah, I was very excited to see how Hans would interpret my work, and I guess he was excited to see how I would interpret his work. So we were both very curious, and as we worked together, we were pleased with the results. I mean, and this gave us more energy to complete the project. And I was very happy here at the exhibition here at Museum Schast that we were able to do an installation, a sculpture, a video, and produce photo, painting, artworks. And so there's a multi-dimensional show here, and I think it reflects on the nature of what we're doing individually and together in a very accurate way.
Your exhibition will take place during the month of photography in Paris.
Yes.
Is it important for you to belong to this manifestation in some way?
I feel it's a good idea because it's a time when the media and the public are focused on photography. So maybe people that normally wouldn't go to this museum will go to the museum to see the museum and what I do. So I'm happy. The more people interested in photography, the better. I mean, for example, in South Africa, my foundation, the Roger Ballen Foundation, just entered an agreement with the Museum of Contemporary Art Africa, which is a new museum that's going to open in September, and it will most likely be by far the most important contemporary art museum in Africa. And so the center in the museum, there's a place in the museum called the Roger Ballen Center, Roger Ballen Foundation Center for Photography. And the goal of that is to make people in Africa more aware of the possibilities of photography. So the month of photography in Paris is sort of the same thing. It's making people more aware of what can be expressed through photography, and hopefully creating a standard. This is what's important in photography right now. The standard is all lost because everybody's taking pictures with phones and iPads, and so there's massive images, and people aren't critical enough. So hopefully by going to an exhibition like this, or maybe others, the standard and understanding will increase, so the work from the general public will improve.
Can you tell us more about your foundation?
The Roger Ballen Foundation was set up about 10 years ago, and the purpose of the foundation is to expand the understanding of photography in Africa. So this takes place on a multi-dimensional level. It takes place through educating people who are teaching photography. It takes place by creating catalogs and articles about photography in Africa. And now that the foundation is now working with the Museum of Contemporary Art of Africa in Cape Town, the foundation with the museum will be bringing and creating all sorts of exhibitions to the museum that relate to African photography. So the key thing is that it's trying to create a format or a foundation that helps people in Africa understand photography on another level, and also it'll establish a venue in the museum. So there's now a venue in the museum for showing high quality photography from Africa. And hopefully these shows that we create in the museum in Cape Town will travel in various places in the world. People have a better idea what's going on in Africa. It's a big job. Africa is a big country, a big place. There's a lot of differences between many of the countries, but hopefully this will make some contribution to the betterment of the field of photography in Africa.